All right, let's take a look at solving these last two trigonometric equations. So in this trigonometric equation we've got here, let's look at the equations. 4 secant x plus 8 is equal to 0. And we have a domain for our answer. Our answer has to be between 0 and 360. So let's get started on this. We're going to go to the same process that we just did. We're going to start by letting u equal secant of x. You don't actually have to do this step if you understand how to solve the problem without it. You don't need to do this. I just like to do this because it kind of simplifies things a little bit. So our next step is to rewrite out our equation. 4 times u plus 8 is equal to 0. Let's solve this. Let's move our 8 over. 4u is equal to minus 8. Divide both sides by 4, we get u is equal to minus 2. Now that we've got u isolated, we take our secant x and we put it back in. Secant x is equal to minus 2. Now, secant x is not on our unit circle. So what we're going to do is we're going to change secant x over to its regular trigonometric function. So secant x is 1 over cos x. I'm going to write it like this. 1 over cos x is equal to negative 2 over 1. Because this is just fractions, we can just flip the fractions around. And we'll get cosine of x is equal to negative 1 over 2. All right, now we can solve this. This one comes up on our unit circle. And on our unit circle, our x value is cosine and our y value is sine. So I'm looking for the x value of cosine. So I'm looking for the angles where my x value on the unit circle is negative 1/2. And I know that cosine is negative in quadrant 2 and 3. So I'm going to look in those two specifically. And I go to my table and I get 120 degrees. That's one answer. And my other answer is 240 degrees. Now, these are going to be our only answers in this domain, but let's just kind of take a look. So, at the general solution, if we didn't have a domain restriction, we would have 120 degrees plus or minus 360n, where n could be any integer, or we could have x is equal to 240 degrees plus or minus 360n, where n is any integer again. So this would be called the general solution. Now we can see here that since our domain is only from 0 to 360, if we took 120 and added 360 to it, we get a number bigger than 360. And if we took away 360 from it, we would get a number smaller than 0. So this is in our domain, but 360 bigger or smaller than it is not. Same thing with 240. If we added 360, we'd be too big for our domain. And if we took away 360, we would be too small for our domain. So these are our only two answers for this equation that is within our domain. Now again, you can check this by graphing this equation. And since the equation equals 0, you graph this, y equals 4 secant x plus 8, and you see where it touches the x-axis, because that would be the second side. Y is equal to 0, that'd be your x-axis. All right, hopefully this process makes sense to you. Let's take a look at our last one. Our last one. If cosine squared x minus 1 equals 0, solve for x in the domain 0 is less than or equal to x is less than 360. Give solutions as exact values. Determine the general solutions for it, where the domain is all the real numbers measured in degrees. All right, so let's start off. I'm going to let u equals cosine squared x. Then my equation then becomes u squared minus 1 is equal to 0. This guy here is the difference of squares. So I'm going to get u plus 1, u minus 1 equals 0. So I'm going to get two answers here. I'm going to get u is equal to minus 1. That would make that guy 0. Or u is equal to plus 1. That would make that guy equal to 0. So I have two solutions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate these two out. Got cosine of x is equal to minus 1. And I've got cosine of x is equal to plus 1. Now again, cosine is the x value on my unit circle. So I'm going to look for points on my unit circle where my x value is minus 1. And in this case, I'm going to get, in the blue case, I'm going to get x is equal to 180 degrees. So now when I look at all my angles that are coterminal with this, it would be 180. 360 bigger is 540, ... And 360 smaller would be negative 180, ... So this is the only one that's in my domain for this factor. The general solution for this one would be x is equal to 180 plus or minus 360 times n, where n could be any integer. All right, and it will give me this sequence of numbers. All right, let's go over here to this one right here where I'm doing cos x is equal to plus 1. So here I look on my unit circle for when x is plus 1, and I get 0. X is equal to 0 degrees. So all my angles would be 0, 360, 720, ... keeps going that way, negative 360, ... keeps going that way. Now, if we look at my domain, look at specifically at this x, it has to be strictly less than 360. It cannot be equal to 360, so this guy is out. So is this guy, so is this guy. So that's my only solution. So this is my only solution here. So these two here are the only solutions. Now the general solution for this one, if we wanted all the solutions, we'd have x is equal to 0 plus or minus 360n, where n could be any integer. Right, so that's how you solve trigonometric equations. I like to do the substitution trick. The substitution trick to make this look like just another equation that you already know how to do. All right, so that's all for section 4.4.